that extreme heat kills more Americans than any other weather-related disaster, and the threat of extreme weather is disproportionately felt by communities of color, lower income households, and vulnerable populations. So as we continue to really just grapple with climate change and extreme weather, utilizing the heat stress flexibilities in LIHEAP is essential to really just ensuring that eligible households are receiving the support they need to stay safe and healthy in their homes. With that said, I ask that you consider establishing a cooling assistance program if you have not already put one in place. We know that cooling resources can help families beat the heat, but they can also address health and safety issues. So for example, due to some of the poor air quality in many communities in or adjacent to the wildfires, an air conditioning unit may be the only means of maintaining an acceptable in-home temperature without compromising one's air quality. So again, if you haven't considered that before, please do. I'll also say that given the frequency of natural disasters, it's also critical that you develop and implement a disaster management policy that really just allows you to be almost immediately responsive with LIHEAP resources after a natural disaster occurs. So I want to jump into what today is going to look like. Last July, OCS issued an information memorandum on heat stress flexibilities and resources. And this IM provided grant recipients with an overview of the program adjustments that can be made throughout the year, really to mitigate the risk of weather-related events, including extreme heat. We're also going to discuss some of that guidance in a little bit more detail shortly, so just stay tuned for that. Before we turn the floor over to our grant recipient panel, we will demonstrate the new heat stress GIS tool that we released a few weeks ago, and we will explain how grant recipients can use this tool to inform program administration and policy changes. And I will just say I am super excited about this tool. OCS made a commitment to make data-informed decisions and wanted to make sure we provided our grant recipients tools to do the exact same thing. So really excited for you to be able to see this demo. We are also going to hear from our panelists from Louisiana, Ohio, Kickapoo Tribe of Oklahoma, and California about how they have used LIHEAP flexibilities to address heat stress. Then we will enter into a Q&A session, but just know that throughout the webinar, attendees will be able to put questions for our panelists or OCS staff in the Q&A box, and our moderator for today's panel will select any unanswered questions to discuss during this Q&A session. Also know that staff and panelists may respond to questions in the box throughout the session, and we want to make sure that your questions get answered. So just to ensure that we do not accidentally miss any questions, please make sure that you use the Q&A box for questions and use the chat box for all comments and greetings. And then finally, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording and the slides will be posted to the OCS website shortly. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Akam Rahman, to discuss the OCS guidance on heat stress. Akam?
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Janelle. I would like to offer my special thank you to the panelists and to all of you for joining us today in this very important webinar. Like many of you, I often wonder what actually heat stress is and how it manifests and impacts us all, especially how it impacts the LIHEAP population we serve each year. Why people die from heat stress every year. Having a clear understanding of the space I think is important because we are all in the business of making intentional policy changes. So today I'm going to briefly talk about some of the flexibilities that are available under the overall block grant rule for LIHEAP, Armed with that, also our disaster management policies, which can give you even greater flexibility in extreme heat situation or extreme weather situation, which can cause a lot of health risk for people who work outdoors, such as our construction workers or migrant or seasonal farm workers. It can raise the body temperature, as you know, at a high level. So without any kind of mitigation, it can create a lot of health issues, a lot of negative health outcome. Due to climate change, we are seeing more and more extreme weathers in unlikely places. That's important for us to understand. For example, last year, we became aware of heat waves in Washington, Oregon, and the entire Pacific Northwest. We are seeing wildfires in New Mexico this year and in Nevada and some other states. We also saw many tragic events from heat stress. For example, in Chicago, we saw how extreme heat actually took lives of our low-income folks. According to CDC, the most interesting thing is heat-related illness is preventable. So what can we do about it? I mean, where does it fit into LIHEAP? And the most important thing is, overall, when we look at heat stress, it impacts everyone, right? But it does not impact everyone the same way. So that is the interesting part. Next slide, please. For example, low-income folks, depending on where they live, they can have very serious impact from heat stress. One is at a very general level, they can see their consumption go up, and therefore they are feeling more energy insecure. They have more bills to pay. The urban heat island, many of you have heard about it. We know that many of our low-income folks live in urban areas, so they can see an increase in extreme heat-related situations. We know that low-income people in general and ethnic minorities, they have a much higher energy burden. And then also they tend to live in areas where we are seeing more and more heat-related incidents. You will see that in a greater detail in our presentation later on today, but that's something to think about. And also think about how heat stress can impact vulnerable population. Of the 5.6 million households we serve each year, a significant number of those households have older individuals, they have young children, they have disabled individuals, as well as people who have medical needs. So if the indoor temperature goes up and they don't have the right cooling equipment such as air conditioning, or they are exposed to prolonged indoor air temperature, it can pose a huge risk to their health. So we would like you to be aware of those situations. But let me just quickly go through some of the policy flexibilities that are already available to you. How many of you know that you can actually change your income eligibility on a temporary basis to help households who are normally not eligible under your income guidelines? For example, if you're seeing heat stress in a certain area of your state or your tribal area, you can look into your income eligibility threshold and pick greater of the two between 150% and 60% of state median income and temporarily change income eligibility so that you can serve a much greater number of households. You can also adjust your benefit structure. For example, you can create benefit matrices that will specifically address households who are being impacted by heat stress. You can introduce cooling benefit if you don't have a cooling program, as Janelle mentioned. And then we are also learning that certain states where you have various levels of climates, they actually have introduced benefit matrices that can impact, that can actually address climates, various levels of temperature and climate zones within their state. So there's something else to think about. And then outreach. It's same thing goes for outreach, that You do not have to always think about outreach as a statewide event or a tribal event. Yes, you need general outreach, but at the same time, the flexibilities allows you as a grant recipient to make targeted outreach, reaching out to folks who are being impacted by heat waves, potential impacts, think about potential impact. So finally, I would like to move on. Before I move on, I would like to make two pleas. One is, I would like our cold weather regions to consider if heat wave is an issue for their states, because climate is changing so quickly. In general, I can say without even looking at data that warmer places are, their climate is changing, colder places, their climates are changing. So in order for us to be at the top of this issue, I would like our states to look at climate changes within their state. And second of all, another important way our grantees can assist is to look at crisis assistance. Is it a temporary crisis assistance? Is it time bound? Like, am I providing crisis assistance only for a few months of the year? How can I extend that so that I have crisis assistance throughout the year? So if people need assistance with their cooling benefits or electric bills, I can address that. Next slide, please. So in this slide, again, this is an issue-based conversation. So I'm trying to show some connection to you. You already know about this, but it's worth repeating that extreme heat, if we are experiencing extreme heat, cooling assistance and crisis assistance could be one of the top ways we can assist these households. We can simply provide them with air conditioner. We can also provide them with bill payment assistance so that they have continuous services. Unsafe housing, it's also is part of the conversation here, is that houses that are drafty, that have mold, that have increased like efficiency issues, they can also pose risk during extreme heat. As you know that indoor temperature is not just a temperature issue, but it's also an issue of air quality. So extreme heat can impact the quality of the indoor air. Medical needs, I already mentioned that it is very, very important for us to think about case management, think about information and referrals, so that if our LIHEAP case workers, they become aware of heat-related issues, they should just simply refer them to the medical community so that they can get help. So in other words, we should not ignore health-related outcomes or health-related issues during LIHEAP intake. And finally, a couple of other things I already mentioned, making sure that energy supply is continuous. I will just, before I move on to my final slide, I'll just share a quick story with you. As you know that we have a number here in addition to the NEAR hotline where anyone can call. So for the last few days, we have been dealing with a customer in a state where she's been without electricity for 5 days. And she has, I believe she has individuals with medical needs. So we have been working pretty closely with the state to restore electric services to our home. The biggest problem is that in that state, their crisis program ended and their cooling program has not started. So think about these kind of gaps in our services to address these kind of emergency situation, because with so much investment with LIHEAP and with so much flexibilities available out there, I don't think we can really serve the needs of low-income folks if we don't think about our program as a continuous services throughout the year, given our resources. And then finally, I would like to bring up 3 things that are covered under our crisis assistance policies, but they can be easily adopted during any kind of heat wave or extreme weather situation. How many of you know that LIHEAP does not provide housing assistance, but you can temporarily provide housing assistance to folks who are impacted by natural disaster or extreme weather? you can actually pay for transportation to a cooling center during extreme heat events. Same thing goes true during winter storms, but we are discussing heat waves here. And then power generators. We get calls from our tribal grantees, state grantees all the time that can I provide power generators to households without electricity? And it's not like paying someone electric bill so that you can restore services. It's possible during a wildfire or possible during a hurricane or any other natural disaster to be out of power for several days because simply the power line is broken. So in a situation like this, LIHEAP can actually pay for power generators. So I'm looking forward to some active conversation with all of you throughout this cooling season. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Holly to show us her demonstration of the heat stress dashboard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akam. And while I pull up my screen to show the heat stress dashboard, I'm also going to introduce my colleague, Tumi, who is going to start us off describing this dashboard. Tumi, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LIHEAP and Extreme Heat Dashboard. We released this dashboard as part of our Earth Day celebrations. It was actually released on Earth Day, and it aimed to get at how LIHEAP is able to mitigate and alleviate the stresses of extreme heat on the populations that we serve. This dashboard is available in Spanish. We have a Spanish version of it and can be translated to 109 languages. The first part of the dashboard talks about what extreme heat is and provides the definitions of extreme heat and why it's important, and what heat stress is, which is something that Akam covered in his talk. And for the purpose of this dashboard, we were looking at extreme heat days as 90-degree, days above 90 Fahrenheit for a period of 2 to 3 days, which is considered an extreme heat event. We're seeing more and more of these events as time goes because of climate change. The next section of the dashboard looks at historic temperature trends. We've included this time slider from the CDC that shows how extreme heat patterns have changed. These are 90-degree days, counts of 90-degree days. You can stop the slider at any given period in history to look at the county level data. So you can click on each county and see the number of days above 90 for that particular year. The next section is we've included informational videos from the CDC. The first one talks about how to deal with extreme heat, what to do in an event of an extreme heat situation. And the other looks at climate change as a whole in relation to your health. And it tags nicely to the next section, which looks at health impacts of extreme heat. So deaths, emergency room visits, hospitalizations. And this dashboard we pulled from the CDC. The data is going to be updated, but you can select by year. You can filter by year to look at national heat patterns or heat health patterns by year. And then you can go to a specific state. So for New York, you can see that in 2019, there were 26 deaths. And the figures for the hospitalizations and ER visits. The next section is the additional resources that we included for exploration at your leisure. There's the climate and health assessment. These pop out to different pages. Heat-related illness guidance, what to do, and then the CDC heat tracker, as well as frequently asked questions about extreme heat. Holly will go ahead. Oh, and we did include the National Energy Assistance referral number at the bottom and all of our contact details. Holly will go ahead and talk to you about the next couple of pages on the site.
All right, thank you, Tumi, for setting the stage for why this is important. And now I'm going to get into some of the details on the purpose of LIHEAP, focusing on energy burden reduction, And then we'll get into LIHEAP funding, which is our third tab here. So this page, second tab over, is looking at LIHEAP and the purpose as it relates to extreme heat. Our initial item we're going to look at is energy burden. So we took the data from the Performance Management Data Warehouse, which is on the Performance Management website, to start to build the tools on this page. And so this first map here, you see energy burden. So if you slide this slider all the way over to the right, you see energy burden before LIHEAP. And as you slide the slider over to the left, you see the energy burden after LIHEAP, and you see there's a significant reduction when LIHEAP services are rendered. So that is what this map indicates. And underneath the map, we wanted to make sure, instead of including like the data tables that we used to create the map, we thought it would be a good idea to point people back to the Performance Management website. So here you go, there's the link there and how to actually pull this data out of the data warehouse. The next section of this page starts to look at that intersection of energy burden and extreme heat. This information in this map actually comes from the Department of Energy's Low Income Energy Affordability Data Tool on energy burden, because it gets down to that county level data, which aligns with the CDC temperature data that we showed on the previous tab. So this map is actually a relationship map where you see the darker the color, the higher the energy burden and the higher number of extreme heat days. It's a map that you can interact with. So I'm going to click here up in Minnesota and Roseau County, Minnesota. You see there are 22 extreme heat days. That's almost an entire month. And you can also see the energy burden is 17%. Now, typically you would not anticipate seeing 22 days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And, you know, just to kind of right size that a little bit, if you go down here into Yoakum County, Texas, you see the extreme heat days are 22 also in Yoakum County, Texas. So you would anticipate, extreme heat in Texas. You would probably have the air conditioners and what have you in place to do that, but not so much up in northern Minnesota. So that's what this map does, is allow folks to kind of look at the nation quickly and see where areas of need may be as it comes to extreme heat. Now we get into that LIHEAP target population. Many of you know we prioritize children, people with disabilities, and seniors, and that directly aligns with the folks who are most impacted by extreme heat. You see children, older adults, and people with disabilities. It also describes up here some of the flexibilities that Acom had identified in his presentation. And now we get into that other performance measure related to service restoration and loss and prevention. And what this graphic does is actually show 1 dot to 20 households on the prevention of loss of service, broken down by what you all report to us. And then over here on the right, you see the restoration of service. Again, if you want to increase the size of these, you guys can slide them over and then click into the map by state and see a little bit more detail. Everything in these graphics are interactive, and you can see numbers as you scroll through. And lastly, there are additional resources. We pointed to the LIHEAP Clearinghouse and where we got other sources. The DOE tool is here, and here is that IM that Acom referenced earlier. The last page is of LIHEAP funding. And so looking at LIHEAP funding as it relates to cooling, summer cooling, year-round crisis, and weatherization assistance. This first dashboard is actually looking at a bunch of different data sets. So you see the plan data for FY22. You see historical benefits nationally going to cooling, or summer crisis, and year-round crisis. And then over here, we added in the policy related to heat related disconnections. So this is the national number, and I'm going to go to Maryland really quickly to show you what it looks like in Maryland. You see Maryland for the past 3 years has been running a cooling program. They do not do summer crisis, but they do year-round crisis. They have a disconnection policy, 95 degrees or above, and you see their plans for cooling benefits as it relates to 22. Here's a description of the different funding streams. We included weatherization as it is a way to mitigate energy burden in households, and you can also use it in hot climates related to cooling needs. The next dashboard is looking at percent of funds allocated to cooling assistance, summer, year-round, and weatherization. You see here nationally, Things are trending up as the percentage of the LIHEAP funds going towards cooling. And then again, you can select by state, and I am going to select Maryland again, not picking on Maryland. I just am trying to be consistent. So here you have what Maryland has planned for cooling or has done for cooling in 2018, 19, and 20. You can also see their year-round crisis, and the other benefits are not used, but that is fine. That's the discretion of the grantee, as you guys know. And again, all of these point back to where we pulled the data from the performance management site. The last dashboard is actually starting to get into those vulnerable households that we serve. And so you can see nationally from cooling benefits, serving by percent of poverty. And then you also have children, seniors, and people with disabilities. And this is summer crisis displayed that way. You can select years, and then you can also select states. And if a state is not doing that program, I'll show you really quickly. As we noticed earlier, Maryland does not do summer crisis. So then this information would just pop up on the left-hand side. The last item on this page are additional resources to get data and information about the LIHEAP program specifically. With that in mind, that's all I have for the dashboard. If you guys have any additional questions or feedback, please pop them in the Q&A. We are always available to answer questions. Any comments on how to improve the tool? Happy to hear those too. So I'm going to hand it back over to Heather. Heather, thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Lauren Hartley-Holmes, the Energy Assistance Administrator for Louisiana, Letitia Chastain, Deputy Chief, Community Service Division in Ohio, Kaylee Gonzalez, the Federal Caseworker and LIHEAP Caseworker with the Kickapoo Tribe of Oklahoma, and Kristen Hart, the Assistant Deputy Director for Energy and Environmental Services Division from the state of California. Thank you all for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren to get us started.
Thank you, Heather, and hello everyone from Louisiana, where we live in a constant sweat and with frizzy hair from high humidity. So even though the radar may show that the temperature is 85, when you add a humidity component to it, sometimes it can be into the 90s or even higher. So we have really tried to utilize all cooling flexibilities as possible. We are primarily an electric state. And in the event of power outages or natural disasters or non-paid bills, we can have some serious life-threatening instances in play. Next slide. So we run a heating program, but right now it's only from November to March 15th. We open up our cooling season in April, and we will run it until funds are expended into the second year. We also run a year-round crisis program, and those crisis funds are for any type of disconnect that's threatened or pending, and it can pay either electric, gas, propane, any type of source. We are also the administrator for the Weatherization program for the state, and we start that program towards the end of our first year. As you can see from our obligations, we put almost half into cooling or crisis assistance in the event of natural disasters or in the event of disconnects. Because I will tell you that when it gets to be about June 1st is the start of hurricane season. And so when it gets to about the time that school starts letting out, we really start to see a rise in those temperatures and a need for this funding. Next slide. So we have 39 subgrantees across our parishes that assist with bill payment assistance. We have let's go back just a couple. We have 6 subgrantees that assist with our weatherization program. And Katie, yep, there you go. And so these are just some additional facts about how we run our program here in Louisiana. Each year, one of our clients are eligible for one of our 3 components, not one of our 3 components, each of our 3 components, heating, cooling, and crisis. In the event that a client comes in during our next year's heating season and we have a subgrantee that may still have cooling funds available in their second year, Those cooling funds may be delivered at the same time as a heating benefit. We use all of our funds go towards cooling and crisis once we run out at the end of our heating season. We also allow our subgrantees to do budget revisions, which at the end of the heating season, if they have remaining heating funds, they can move those into either their cooling or crisis components. We're also using our American Rescue Plan funds to pay down any past due amounts that can be for either a heating or a cooling bill or both. And for the last 2 years, at the end of our second year of the grant, in the event that we have had remaining funds, we have issued supplemental cooling benefits to our clients that already received a cooling bill payment assistance benefit. You can go to the next slide. So for our crisis component, we have 3 areas that we focus on. The benefits are a bill payment assistance, equipment repair or replacement, and disaster relief. We allow our clients to receive a benefit not to exceed $600 in a 12-month period. And I've added down here just some of the caveats that we have added into our state plan in the last 2 years as a result of all of these additional funds that have come in to allow us the flexibility to really design the program around the need as it hits. So we have added into it about public health emergencies and unforeseen circumstances. Next slide. So our equipment repair and replacement program, even though we have a weatherization program and it is designed with 6 of our subgrantees, our 39 subgrantees that perform LIHEAP, we allow them to do heating system and cooling system repair and replacement. If the cost of the benefit can cover the equipment plus the installation, and we use this in the event of life-threatening emergencies or things like that so that we don't impact our weatherization ranking system. Next slide. And disaster relief. So we've listed here everything that we include in our disaster program. I will tell you that this has been in place since probably 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit. When New Orleans was impacted by Hurricane Katrina, we had people who were homeless for months and even years. And this was one of those things that had it not been available to us, there could have been, you know, more loss of life than we had already had. And so, you know, we will use this for any type of natural disaster. We've recently had, you know, we're averaging, I would say, about 1 natural disaster a year here in Louisiana. So in the last 2 years, we've had, you know, at least 2 major hurricanes. They normally hit around August. We have had significant flooding that has been historic and has been one of those 100-year floods. And so these are things that, you know, it's not always utilized each year, but we have this in place in the event that it hits certain areas. So we allow that to be either by federal or state declaration. And in order for one of our subgrantees to implement this part of the program, they have to submit a plan to us in writing that we have to pre-approve, and then we will reimburse them. Most recently, we used this for the purchase and installation of generators following Hurricane Laura in Calcasieu Parish. So those, you know, without this program, there would be additional families that would be going without heating or cooling in their homes. So with that, we'll take any questions, or I will pass it off to my friends in Ohio.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Again, thank you so much for the invitation. We're super excited to be able to share what Ohio is doing for the LIHEAP program and the resources to make sure that our Ohioans stay cool in the summertime. The Summer Crisis Program, many of the features with the Summer Crisis Program are some of my favorite benefits that we provide for our customers to make sure, again, they stay cool in the summertime. And with that being said, just a couple of highlights as relates to the work that Ohio was doing. I don't have a lot of slides. This is the only slide I have, but my email address is listed here. So if you definitely have any questions, definitely, please let me know so we can have further conversations in that regard. With that being said, our summer crisis program typically runs from July 1st through August 31st. The past several years, we have extended that to September 30th. So this year we are continuing to do that because we're finding even in September that the weather is relatively on the high end here in Ohio. And in the last several years, we've noticed that our summers are extremely warm as well, and it's getting warmer sooner. I want to say this weekend is supposed to be in the upwards of 90, and typically we don't get that weather until at least like mid-June. And we're starting to see that we're getting warmer months or warmer temperatures sooner throughout the year. And so making sure that our Ohioans, especially those that are vulnerable, are cool. And with that being said, the allocation that we typically have for our summer crisis program using LIHEAP dollars is about $12.5 million. Those particular services include payments towards electric bills, air conditioning repair, air conditioning and/or fans, actually the units. And then also, I think those are the three primary ones. Yes, assistance towards electric bills, air conditioning repair, or units, right? And so what we like about this program, specifically with the air conditioning units and our fans, these customers, that may not have, and it's really surprising the number of units in Ohio that do not have central air in those homes. And it makes sense because we have a pretty large Appalachia area where those resources or that type of setup in those homes are not available or not equipped in those homes. So having that window air unit and those fans is extremely critical to our Appalachia community and making sure that they stay cool in the summertime. In the past summer crisis program, we served 31,556 households last year, and the average benefit was $292. And so again, that's an ongoing average. So many of our Ohioans receive, of course, the benefit towards their electric bill. Again, to make sure that they have, the electric to be able to stay cool. Of course, that we have a lot of our population that needs their electric for their oxygen machines and life-saving measures for members in their household. So having this particular benefit is life-saving for many of our customers. So the summer crisis program is part of course, our HEAP program that provides the benefit for the cooling season for our eligible Ohioans, for the electric bill, or the purchase of fans or air conditioners. And the great thing is that as relates to eligibility, individuals can receive a payment, an air conditioner, and up to 2 fans. So it's possible for families to receive all 3 benefits at the same time. So, depending on their eligibility. So what we use as far as eligibility for the summer crisis program, households must meet one of the following conditions. A household member that's either a household member that's 60 years or older, individuals that has a documented medical condition. That medical condition is broad. So that individual has whatever medical condition, and it can be just one household member, they can be eligible for that. That medical condition must be documented or provided to our energy assistance providers and written off by either a doctor or a nurse practitioner indicating they have a medical condition. They don't have to disclose the condition, but they need to indicate there's a medical condition. And then individuals with a disconnection, termination, or transfer of services. So the families or household must meet one of those conditions to be eligible for our summer cooling program. And again, they just have to meet just one of those. And so one of the things that we really like about this program, especially with the air conditioning and fans, again, there's lots of households that do not have those particular units, and being able to provide those services. A lot of our energy assistance providers do a number of outreach. I've heard the phrase beat the heat. And so a lot of our Ohioans will kick off their summer crisis program with promoting what they would call beat the heat, a way to bring awareness to the program in their respective communities and counties, to let their communities know help is here. Here's how they can get it. Oftentimes we have our energy assistance providers do applications on site during these outreach opportunities. And the great thing is as we come into, the relaxing of social distancing protocols, a lot of our agencies that we've noticed is doing a lot of outdoor events to again promote those programs and services, and again doing applications on site, so that customers can receive the benefits that they are eligible for. So again, we're super excited about that. One of the things that I think my colleagues in Louisiana talked about was leveraging the home weatherization program and the air conditioning repair program. And so we also do the same thing as well here in Ohio. A lot of our energy assistance providers will leverage the two to be able to provide the weatherization services, in addition to helping those families in need of air conditioning repair. And what we have noticed is that oftentimes for the air conditioning repair, the costs are between $200 and $300. So it may just need, Freon, filled up, or a tune-up, and that's pretty much it that was wrong with their air conditioner. We don't see oftentimes families in need of, replacing their entire air conditioners, just those minor things that we're finding that, help, bring life back to their air conditioning central air. And so these again have been a lifesaver to a lot of Ohioans, especially our homeowners that have those older central air units, and wasn't aware that all it was that amount. But when you don't have $200 or $300 to be able to put into a repairing the air conditioner, that it becomes a choice between rent or air conditioning, right? So being able to provide this particular service as far as air conditioning repair, it's been amazing. And then of course, wrapping that and leveraging our home weatherization team to be able to make sure they stay cool in wintertime and warm in the wintertime. It's just an amazing collaboration. It's one of the ways I love how we do what we do. So those are some of the ways that Ohio is using our LIHEAP funds to address the heat stress across the country that doesn't seem like it's going to let up anytime soon. But again, my email is listed here, so I know there'll be questions and answers following it. So I will still be here for any questions that you have, but for any longer conversations, I'll be more than happy to take those by email. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to our friends in Oklahoma to share what they're doing. And I believe that's Kylie that's going to be presenting.
Can everybody hear me? All right, cool. Okay. Hi, I'm Kylie. I'm over here. I'm the LIHEAP/federal caseworker here at the Keeper Tribe of Oklahoma. I'm just going to share with you just a little bit of what we deal with as far as the summertime. So during the summertime, our biggest threats are thunderstorms, which could knock out power. Within our community, we have a lot of homes that are total electricity. So when their electric is out, so is their water, so is their heating and cooling. It just causes a big problem for a lot of them in their community. Tornado threats, the high winds, those ones can, knock out power lines, knock down poles, debris flying can cause damages to the home. Again, loss of power, energy, heating and cooling. We have rising temperatures coming up. So far, it's just been kind of humid with the spring weather coming in. So hopefully we'll be prepared as far as that. Right now, we have our cooling assistance that has just opened up in May, the beginning of May. So right that we can assist with, your energy costs, your utility bills. We have air conditioners that we can provide. Can we go next slide, please? Okay, so for that, the solutions that we have so far that we are currently working on, since I've been in here, we are trying to do air conditioners. We are testing it as far as the community to see what type of household sizes that we constantly see through. So kind of like if it's a more bigger houses, we know what size to air conditioners to get for the future year, so that we're prepared and they're not struggling with a small unit that does very little for their household. So with that, when they qualify for that, we can give that to them based on household size. So if we have a bigger household size, they can either get 2 air conditioners, an air conditioner and a fan. Just depends on the eligibility on that. We also are currently working with our vendors. I'm trying to work with our utility vendors within our community. We have 2 of them, I do believe, to see if they can provide information, more so of a class to kind of like help with energy costs. We're also, during that class, we want to provide pamphlets that we have created to kind of show information as far as when they have rising temperatures come through, that it'll help them understand the I cannot think of it. They understand how to stay safe, the safety tips that we have, how to better understand the symptoms of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, heat rash, how to stay, kind of like hydrated. It's just something that we're trying to start. We also have the hotel motel assistance for the type of problems that we will run that will cause them to have to leave their home to seek cooling and energy assistance. So we're doing that this year. For this one is a test run to see how many in our community that we can assist and kind of adjust our budget from here on until the next year, so that we are able to continue to provide it for those that are impacted. Let's go next slide, please. This is kind of just a small example of what our pamphlet is coming out to be. We hope to try to give some sort of information. So for instance, we have a lot of elders who do have custody or guardianship of their grandchildren. So this will kind of help those children understand, say, if the elder suffers from these symptoms, they will kind of know what to do in a panic type of situation. We also have, energy saving tips on there, but we hope to have that provided whenever we have a class from one of our vendors and they can better help them. We have something where I'm trying to get that those of our clients that have attended to learn how to stay safe and how to save energy. We're hoping to give them some sort of a gift assistance on that for trying to come and learn that information. Currently, that's all we have right now. We haven't got too hot. It's just been kind of hot plus humid, so that kind of impacts it a little bit. Not as bad as Louisiana probably, but it does get pretty hot here. So hopefully we can figure out this year into next year how much more we can help and assist our community. Let me see. Mainly our impact is we have a lot of elders within our jurisdiction here. So we're trying to help them as much as we can as far as transporting them to needed places. We've been kind of busy here lately, trying to help them get everything that they need as far as food and stuff like that while they're not out here in this heat to keep them cool. Bringing them applications, assisting with them. If they can't make it here, we'll come to them and assist them over the phone, however they need that. Let me see. Other than that, it's been going pretty good so far. We've helped a lot of people. We've had a lot of crises going on with the energy costs going up. And then everybody's still trying to come back from the COVID. So we're working on that, trying to better and help everybody that we can, and go from there. Now, my email is not on here, but if you have any questions, just shoot them in the Q&A and I'll be glad to answer them from there.
Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Kristen Hart. I'm with the state of California's LIHEAP. Today, I'm going to focus on the extreme heat and drought in California, which has contributed to the unprecedented wildfires our state has experienced over the last several years. I'll talk about the two main crisis programs that we administer that help our LIHEAP customers during this time. Next slide. So just a little bit of history on the wildfires in California. Over the last decade, California has experienced increased, intense, and record-breaking wildfires in Northern and Southern California. These fires have resulted in devastating loss of life and billions of dollars in property and infrastructure damage. The start of some of these fires, unfortunately, has been attributed to power lines. So with the continuing threat of wildfires, some utilities have may proactively cut power to electrical lines in certain weather conditions. This effort is called a Public Safety Power Shutoff, or PSPS. PSPS events occur when utilities shut off power to prevent fires when strong winds, heat events, and related conditions are present. Power is restored only after the extreme weather conditions have passed and the power lines within the impacted areas are deemed safe again. PSPS events can leave communities and essential facilities without power, which brings its own risks and hardships, particularly for vulnerable communities and individuals. From 2013 to the end of 2019, California experienced over 57,000 wildfires, and the three large energy companies conducted 33 PSPS de-energizations. Next slide. In response to the PSPS events in California, CSD adapted our crisis policies to include a PSPS emergency preparedness pilot policy and updated our severe weather energy assistance and transportation services, or SWETS policy. Next slide. The purpose of the PSPS emergency preparedness pilot policy is to provide services to low-income households with medically vulnerable customers who are residing in designated high fire risk areas. The PSPS pilot assistance is intended to be provided in advance of an actual outage and may be conducted year-round. Prior to providing PSPS services, our local service providers must conduct an emergency risk assessment in order to qualify a household. So there's basically 4 steps. As I mentioned, the LSP would start by conducting a household emergency risk assessment. They would also provide PSPS preparedness education. They can also provide emergency preparedness supplies through emergency supply kits prior to the event. So these kits can include blankets, hand warmers, first aid kits, lanterns, flashlights, headlamps, rechargeable emergency LED bulbs, or other battery powered lighting, batteries, coolers, or other cold storage devices essential for food and medicines. Finally, they can also provide backup power appliances. So our local service providers may purchase equipment for the PSPS pilot to either lend or give to a medically vulnerable low-income household. Equipment is intended to supply clients with a solution in advance of a PSPS event to help power medical equipment, provide cool storage for medication, and or to mitigate other health and safety concerns. Next slide. The other crisis program is SWETS. So the intent of SWETS is to address the energy-related emergency needs of low-income households affected by an emergency or crisis, such as a natural disaster or energy supply shortage or disruption. For PSPS events, our local service providers have the authority to activate SWETS upon receiving notice from CSD, which is us, a utility, or from the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services State Warning Center of a potential PSPS event occurring within their designated service territory. For all other emergencies, our local service providers must receive activation approval from CSD. So our SWET service provisions include a utility assistance or wood, propane, and oil benefit. Typically, this would be like a second benefit because we usually only do one. It allows for temporary housing services such as hotels or motels, apartments, RV space rental, campgrounds, and these are typically up to 5 days. It also allows for transportation services to cooling centers, to shelters, medical facilities for displaced low-income individuals residing in a temporary shelter, and safety areas or shelters during evacuations. We also allow for temporary heating, cooling, and power appliances, which includes air conditioners, evaporative coolers, heaters, fans, battery power backup devices, generators, and the like. We also allow for other personal tangible items such as coats, blankets, and sleeping bags. Next. So those are the crisis programs at a very high level, but I just want to close with a reminder that LIHEAP is a very flexible program. So if you don't have a disaster program or it doesn't allow for some of the things that you've seen from the panelists here today, you can always modify your program. HHS absolutely encourages these types of services under LIHEAP. So please, reach out to them, reach out to us if you are wanting to incorporate some of these things you've seen today. So with that wraps up my presentation, and I thank you for your time today.
And I want to just extend a heartfelt thank you to all the panelists today. I know we're running a little bit short on time. We are trying to address some of the questions and answers in the Q&A box. But I do want to point out that this presentation today, including all the presenters, slides, and information and recording, will be posted on the ACF website, and you'll have access to that. So they will be available. We also have listed out resources, including the heat stress landing page, the dashboard that Holly and Toomey demonstrated, our guidelines, and the flexibilities you have during hurricanes and tropical storms, and also any Q&A on disaster relief. We really encourage you, please reach out to your Division of Energy Assistance contact person, your program specialist, any of us at DEA. We're really here to help you and help you advise you. If you haven't done a cooling program, as Janelle said at the beginning, this might be the time with the American Rescue Funds and the note in the climate change and the extreme heat we are going to be facing this summer. But reach out and talk to your program specialist or anyone from the DEA office. We really are here to help and partner with you. And we just thank you every day for the service that you provide to low-income customers in meeting their heating and cooling needs. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for participating, and please contact us if you need any additional information. Again, the webinar and slides will be posted to our website. Thank you.